Hey everyone. Hey everyone. How's everyone evening so far? Welcome to episode six of Life Unmothered, from hopelessness to hope. I hope everyone is having a blessed night so far. I had to come on live today to do my episode today because I'm not going to be available to do it tomorrow. So I said I didn't want to miss. I'm sorry, y'all. I said I didn't want to miss a week. Yes. A week. Let me turn this down. So I said I didn't want to miss a week. So here I am. Well, let me just echo in. Okay. So, but first and foremost, thank y'all. Thank y'all for the support. Thank y'all for the support. When I tell y'all that the support for this is so amazing right now, I am so grateful. I'm so honored that people is taking the initiative to take the first steps when it comes to life, a mother, and breaking the cycles and how to heal when you've been hurt by family. So y'all, I'm telling y'all, work the work that's in the book. Work the work. It's for you. It's for to better you. It's for to better your lineage. It's for your children. It's for your grandchildren. It's for your legacy. So just don't get the book, y'all. Work the work that's in the book. I promise y'all. I thank y'all. Y'all showing out. Y'all showing out. Literally, I just ordered a lot of books left. I just ordered a lot of books, and literally I only have 3 books left out of that. So I just want to tell y'all I love y'all and thank y'all for y'all support, because this isn't just a moment. I promise y'all, this is a movement. And as y'all can see, I've been making announcements that God has been opening doors for me. And let's just say my mind is literally just, because, I thought I was blown away 4 years ago with the doors that God had opened for me then. But y'all, when I tell y'all that the doors that's being opened for me is on a whole nother dimension right now, y'all gonna see. Y'all gonna see. I'm not going to announce anything yet, but let's just say that everything starts to kick off in November. That's all I'm gonna say. That's it. Y'all just gotta wait and see. I promise y'all. Y'all gotta wait and see what God has completely blew my mind, but I'm still humble and I'm still thankful for everything that He's doing in my life right now. But y'all, we finna jump into this. We finna jump right on into this, because the reason why I'm doing the topic that I'm doing tonight is that you hear people say, and this is recently or lately, or, the conversation is coming up, it's healing your inner child. That is what you're hearing so far. But no one is taking the time out to explain to you guys what actually your inner child is. And so we're going to dive deep into what your inner child is, for number 1, what it looks like when you're wounded, for number 2, and how you're parenting from a wounded inner child, number 3. So that is what we're about to jump into, right? So I'm going to read my statement first before we get into this knowledge. This show was born from pain I never deserved, and the healing I fiercely fought for. I know what it's like to be unmothered, to grow up without the nurture, protection, or love I needed. To be raised in trauma told me to stay silent, to expect to smile through it all. But I also know what it's like to break the cycles, y'all. Reclaim your voice and rewrite your story. My mission, my life's purpose, is to shine a light on childhood trauma, abuse, and pain that most people are too scared to talk about. To expose the wounds we were taught to hide, and to help others rise from theirs too. This isn't just a show. This is a movement, a mirror, and a safe house for truth. It's for the ones who were told to get over it and never had the chance to process it. It's for the inner child still waiting to be seen. Because healing isn't just personal, y'all. It's generational. And I'm not just healing for me, I'm healing for my lineage and helping others do the same. So if you ever felt unseen, unloved, or unmothered, you are not alone. And we're healing together, y'all. So, with that being said, let's jump right on in. So, what is an inner child? Your inner child is part of you that still holds the feelings, memories, experience, and beliefs you developed in childhood. It's not just a metaphor, it's a very real psychological concept that represents the younger version of yourself, right? Shaped by how safe, seen, and loved and supported you felt growing up. That's what the inner child is. The inner child is the emotional memory of who you were as a child and how that child survived, still lives in you today. So it's how that child still lives in you today. And y'all got to understand, we all still have an inner child. Like I don't care what anybody says because we all was young, we all was kids. So that inner child still lives in us regardless, right? So what does it look like in real life? What does your inner child looks like in real life? The joy you feel when you play, dance, and laugh freely, that's your inner child feeling safe. The anxiety or shutdown you feel when you're criticized or abandoned, that's your inner child remembering old wounds, y'all. The people pleasing, the fear of being too much, or the constant need to prove your worth, all of that can come from the inner child who had to survive with not enough love, attention, or validation, y'all. So when you people please, and trust me, y'all, there's a lot of people pleasers out here, right? You know when you're doing too much to feel worthy, to feel validated from somebody, you going over and beyond for that person. That's people pleasing, right? So that's your inner child is surviving without enough love, attention, or validation, right? So your inner child carries this. This is what your inner child carries. Unmet needs for love, safety, and comfort. It carries childhood wounds, abandonment, rejection, and abuse. Beliefs formed in early life, I'm not good enough, or I have to be perfect to be loved. That's what your inner child still carries. Okay. Pure innocence and creativity, your truest self before the world taught you to hide. Your truest self before the world taught you to hide, meaning your innocence as a child, right? So, what is the inner child really? The inner child is not a poetic term. I need y'all to understand this. The inner child is not a poetic term. It's a psychological and emotional reality. It refers to the subconscious part of your mind that was formed during early development from infancy to adolescence, y'all. Listen, it's a subconscious mind, your subconscious mind that developed during infancy and adolescence. This part of you holds all the emotional imprints, both wounds and wonders. Okay, that shaped how you relate to love, safety, trust, and identity. So the inner child is where your core beliefs, attachment styles, and emotional reactions are born, right? So this is where these things are born from infancy all the way up to adolescence. And trust me, nobody is going to tell us that during our early childhood that we were getting wounded in the process of being raised, right? And I'm gonna break that down too. So, signs your inner child is still wounded. Y'all, listen to this. And trust me, like, put yourself, if you can relate to what I'm saying, trust me, you have a wounded inner child, because I can relate. Like I told y'all, I'm not bringing y'all nothing that I have never experienced. I had to be my own example. My first example, I had to be my own experiment to understand this, right? So that's why I'm bringing these definitions for, to make it make sense to y'all. So we breaking everything down like a fifth grader, like, because I want it to make sense to everyone who can relate to this. This is going to start to pop your why bubble. Like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I going through this? Why is my mood changing every so often? Like, this is your inner child screaming for you to come back. And so this is the signs your inner child are still wounded. Overreacting emotionally to rejection or criticism. Now, y'all, me, that rejection for me, when I tell y'all that that was one of the toughest things, when somebody just left me, I would get so angry. This is where, like, I'm flattening tires, I'm busting, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm doing all of this because you rejected me, but didn't know that that was my wounded inner child that was truly showing, right? So, constant need for approval, validation, or attention. Fear of abandonment, even in healthy relationships, y'all. And we're going to get into how people with wounded inner child self-sabotage good relationships. Struggling to set boundaries and saying no, right? So a lot of us, even though we want to say no, that's like a huge struggle. Baby, let me tell y'all something. When I understood that I can say no without feeling guilty, oh, I was passing out no's like Oprah. You get a no, you get a no, you get a no. Like, because I'm like, no, I'm not finna do something where it's going to cause me war inside to make you feel comfortable. I'm not doing that. So, struggle to set boundaries and to say no. Deep shame or self-hatred that doesn't match your reality. Feeling not good enough despite evidence of success, y'all. Self-sabotaging relationships, finances, and opportunities. Y'all, let me tell y'all something. I just had this conversation with my sister that I was like, with everything that's coming up, with all the doors that's opening for me that God is placing in front of me, I said that I'm a little bit nervous, and I don't want to self-sabotage the opportunity, because your mind will start playing tricks on you, telling you, especially when your inner critic or that subconscious really start talking to you, start saying, you know, you can't do this, you ain't good enough, you ain't, you know what I'm saying? So you got to learn to rewire those things and talk to yourself with affirmation and positivity, right? So, but that's one way signs your inner child is still wounded. Addictions, y'all. Perfectionism and people pleasing is as survival tools. That's what it says. It says these aren't flaws, they are protection adapters. Your inner child develops to survive dysfunction. That's what it says, right? So where does the wounds begin, right? So we already know that the wounds begin in the womb. Like, the wounds begin in the womb, but for us, you know, when it hit reality and we really start to understand, it comes from, it said your childhood was unsafe, emotional, physically, physically, or sexually unsafe. emotionally neglectful. Your needs was ignored or minimized. That's what it says. Chaotic, addictions, violence, or constant stress in your household, right? This is where your wounds begin, y'all. This is where the wounds begin. Controlling or abusive. You had no voice or validation, right? Then your inner child, it says, then your inner child likely didn't get the full development in a healthy way. Instead of learning to express, you learn to suppress, right? So, of course, we are to be seen and not heard. So we learn to suppress instead of express, because when we start to express ourselves, we get punished for expressing ourselves. So we can't, so we start to suppress that, right? So, and then it says, instead of learning that you're worthy, you learned that you were a burden. Y'all, come on. Instead of learning that you were worthy, you learned that you was a burden, right? So this is how it shows up. It says how the inner child shows up in adulthood, right? So it's a lot of wounded adults that's walking around, right? That they aged. You know what I'm saying? We age, but baby, your inner child is still wounded. How does it show up in adulthood? You might cling to toxic relationships because being mistreated feels familiar. I can't tell y'all how many toxic relationships I stayed in, because that was my story. That was what familiar to me. That's what bickering and arguing and then trying to stay to work it out, and then you end up trauma bonding, and it's not healthy because I want to fix you. I want to make sure you straight, but I'm ignoring all the needs that I have. You might struggle with self-worth, always trying to earn love and prove yourself. You may overachieve to gain approval or underachieve because you were never believed in. Overachieve, right? I heard some stories, y'all. I heard some stories of people saying, I work this hard because I don't want to be like my mom. And they're overworking and overexalting themselves because they don't want to be like their mom, when they don't have to feel like they have to overachieve, right, to get that appraisal. It's when I tell y'all that is one of the most exhausting things, especially when you finally know, because some people really don't know. But when you finally know what you're doing and why you're doing it, it's just like I ain't got to do that no more. You may parent your own. It said you might shut down during conflicts because it mirrors chaos from your home, right? It mirrors chaos from your childhood. So we are going over how the inner child shows up in adulthood. You may parent your own children out of fear, repeating cycles you swore you would break. Now, I done said that a couple episodes before, right? I done said that. You parent out of fear. And then from the unconscious patterns that we carry, you repeat cycles you swore you break. Now, like I was explaining, how you gonna drop a ball if you was never given the ball to drop, right? So how are we gonna know we repeating something when nobody has ever broke it down to us that we are the pattern, right? We are the pattern. So I became I became the pattern, right? So I had to acknowledge that I was the pattern in order to break it. But I didn't know I was a pattern because why? Everything looked familiar to me. And my foundation was formed on dysfunction. And I had no clue because I just thought that that was right. Who there to tell the child that is wrong? You know what I'm saying? Nobody. So it says these are not your flaws. They are your inner child survival strategies, right? So these are strategies that we form from an adolescent all the way up to adulthood, and we had no clue that they was forming. We had no clue that these were strategies. We had no clue. We just thought that this is everyday life and this is how it's supposed to be. But it's not. It's not, right? So let's keep going, y'all. It said, but instead of facing that child, instead of facing your inner child, we silence them. We call them too sensitive, too dramatic, or lazy. We said this was the past and I'm over it. But the body never forgets and the nervous system never lies. Yep. So that is definitely something. It ain't, look, let me tell you, if you grew up in a toxic, traumatic household, it's not just no getting over it. It's crazy how people would literally say, well, you should be over that by now, but it's your body and your nervous system that's reminding you of the trauma all the time, meaning through anxiety attacks, depression, muscle pains, all of this stuff. Your body is triggering your trauma, but yet, we kind of brush it off, right? And I'm gonna tell y'all this before I move on. Before I walked away from my entire family, and those that know my story know that I've been gone from my entire family almost 12 years now. I have not been around them, right? And so ever since, and I'm not gonna say when I first walked away, it was still hard because even though I got away from them physically, I couldn't shake it mentally because I didn't know what was going on, right? And until, like I told y'all, until I went to the doctor and they told me that I was manic depressed, right? And I'm like, why? That was my question. Why? And they was like, I don't know. So that why right there is what led me down this hole as to researching, because what y'all not finna do is y'all just not finna just label me. But now I understand that I was raised by a narcissist. I was birthed in dysfunction. I was raised by a narcissist, and I grew up in dysfunction plus a narcissist, all of that stuff. So it made my why make sense, right? So that's why I said God told me to come back and tell the world my why, so then I can start teaching you so you can start making your why make sense, right? So let's keep going, y'all. So it says, that was your past. I'm over it. But the body never forgets and the nervous system never lies. You're not just healing memories. You're rescuing. It says when you start healing, you're not just healing your memories. You're rescuing the version of you that was never allowed to exist. That's powerful. That's powerful, y'all. So we gonna keep going. So I just explained to y'all a little bit of what the inner child is, right? And I want y'all to do more research, because I'm only giving y'all an hour of this stuff, but it's so much more behind what I'm telling y'all. I'm just planting a seed in y'all. I'm planting the seed for y'all to do y'all research. But anyway, so we gonna keep going. So I gave y'all the inner child, what the inner child was that we still have in us. Now I'm finna break down what the wounded inner child is, right? A wounded inner child is a part of you that still carries the pain, the fear, the unmet needs from your earliest emotional wounds, often from childhood experience where you felt unsafe, unseen, unlearned, loved, and unworthy. Even though you're grown, that's what it says. Even though you're grown up physically, emotionally, that inner child can remain frozen in time, reacting to life through the lenses of old pain. Y'all, come on. Our inner child has remained frozen. So just because you age, baby, if you dealing with some unhealed, unaddressed childhood wounds, you still are carrying that because your inner child, it says, it remains frozen in time, right? So it's just not no get over it. It's just not no I'm older now. I'm not finna go back. But this is why I tell y'all, and this is why I stress so hard that we are trying to understand these teenagers and their violence. But what we need to understand is the core root to that, right? It's a core root to this violence. So instead of trying to understand it at a surface level, we got to go deeper. We have to go deeper because that's all they doing is they done suppressed this so much that it's pop like a popcorn bag. You can only suppress so much, right? So this is where you find the violence in the street. This is where the teenagers start getting older and try to bulk up at you, talk back, be disrespectful and all of this stuff. But nobody takes the time to ask these teens, where's that anger coming from? Nobody, right? Because majority of the time we so busy providing clothes, food, and shelter, and we think that that's good parenting because our kids look good and they going, what I'm saying, I worked my butt off to put them in the good schools. I did this and do this. But what are they suppressing under the image? What is they suppressing under the image? Because I know what I was suppressing under the image, baby, and it was painful, but I had to make it look good, right? And that stuff was driving me insane. Telling people that I was fine, but I was bleeding inside. Come on, man. That I understand. That's why I said I was once them. I was once them. So let's keep going, y'all. So it says, what a wounded inner child looks like in adulthood. What does an inner child look like in adulthood? It doesn't always look like a child. It looks like adult behaviors driven by childhood wounds. People pleasing, right? That's always going to be one. And the reason why is because us as children, we had to put our feelings on the back burner and take care of maybe a sibling, maybe a parent, you know what I'm saying? Like we couldn't feel our own emotions and pains or whatever we was going through because, we got to get the house clean. We got to, we got to get good grades. We got to do all of this stuff for the image, right? But it turned into people pleasing because when you can't please that person, that parent, especially your parent, you can't please your parent, you're going to start people pleasing somebody else or a group of people to get their approval to fill that void that your parent didn't give you. And trust me, when I tell you I'm speaking from experience, I promise you I am. I'm not saying that everybody can relate to me. And like I told y'all, I'm not for everybody, but I'm for somebody. Whoever can resonate to what I'm saying, yes, everybody didn't grow up the way that I'm talking about growing up. Yeah, and I'm thankful that you had a great household if that's what it is. But in reality, everybody don't have that household. So, the people that come and say, well, everybody wasn't grew up, I'm not talking to you then. But I ask you to stay and learn something, right? Because who knows 20 to 30 years down the line that this information might not be, this information may just be your child, right? It just may be your child, but you think that I'm a good parent. Let's keep going, y'all. So anyway, it's driven by what a wounded inner child looks like in adulthood. People pleasing. You fear rejection so deeply that you will abandon your own needs to make others happy. I just said that. You will abandon your own needs to make others happy. Because as a child, love may have felt conditional, y'all. Love may have felt conditional. Now that's deep. And the reason why I say that is because we only tend to praise our children when they doing well. When they get good grades, go to a good school, the school that we wanted them to go to. You know what I'm saying? So they only get the praise when they do something good. But when they mess up, we criticize them so bad. You know what I'm saying? Instead of correcting, we criticize. Y'all, let's keep going. If I'm good, they won't leave me. That's what a people pleaser say. If I'm good, they won't leave me. Fear of abandonment. You get anxious when someone pulls away or doesn't respond. Even in healthy relationships, you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Everyone leaves me eventually. That's what you tell yourself. Everyone leaves me eventually. You struggle with boundaries. Number 3 is you struggle with boundaries. You let people cross your boundaries, or you don't know how to set them at all because as a child, your boundaries was ignored, punished, or not respected. Now, growing up in our community, boundaries, you ain't had that. You ain't had that. You couldn't keep your door closed. You know what I'm saying? If you wrote in a journal, your parents going through your stuff to find your journal, you know, you didn't have none of that stuff existed. None of it, right? Overreacting to small things. You get intensively triggered, and we gon' break down what triggers are because I need y'all to really understand what a trigger is. You get intensely triggered when things that seem small to others, but that's because your inner child remembers being ignored, yelled at, or criticized, felt like life or death. I'm not overreacting, I'm reliving, right? So that's what a lot of teenagers do. They blow up. Oh, we would say like, dang, they getting real mad at little small stuff. But no, because it triggered something. And I tell people all the time, your children can trigger a trigger that's already planted in you. But you don't know what a trigger is, so you don't know what's happening in you. So that automatically cause you to react. You gonna yell, discipline, hit, whoop, punch. You know what I'm saying? You do all these things out of reaction because you're triggered, right? And so that's why it's very important to understand what your triggers are. And that's coming from a wounded inner child. Your children are reminding you of some things. And when they act out that way, you get triggered and you punish them exactly how you was punished. Y'all, let's keep going. Perfectionism. That's number 5, perfectionism. You constantly strive to be flawless to earn approval, avoid shame, and feel worthy. Mistakes feel unbearable, y'all. Not because they're big, but because they make you feel like a failure as a person. I'm not perfect. If I'm not perfect, I won't be loved. This them teenagers that's breaking their neck to get on honor roll. That's breaking their neck to just be perfect for they, you know what I'm saying? Perfect. They don't have room to breathe. They have no room for mistakes because they feel like a failure. You know, their parents gonna come down so hard. I can't fail this. Y'all, let me tell y'all something. When I was in school, I didn't necessarily learn that stuff, right? I was forcing myself to get it. It wasn't learning. I was forcing myself to get it so I won't get in trouble. I gotta get this. I ain't learning nothing. I just gotta get it so I won't get a whooping when I get home. Get a bad grade, get yelled at, get on punishment. I gotta get it. So you have those children that blow up at the teacher when they don't give them the grade that they actually should have earned, right? They blowing up at the teacher because they know the punishment that's coming when they get home. When I tell y'all I'm speaking from experience, I am. So, fear of being too much or not enough. You shrink yourself. You second guess your emotions. You may hide your joy, your needs, or your truth because at some point someone made you feel like you were too sensitive, too needy, or too loud, right? Who am I? Isn't okay. So you made yourself that who am I isn't okay for the person, right? Chronic shame or self-hatred. You carry a deep inner belief that you're bad, you're broken, or unloved. Not because it's true, but because your experience taught you to internalize the pain as your identity, y'all. We were taught to internalize pain as our identity. And that's why pain, when we get hurt, it feels so familiar. Like you feel pain and then you just be like, you know what? I'm gonna brush that off. It hurt, but I ain't, you don't want to sit in it. You just bypass. You bypass that feeling. That's another form of suppression, right? So it says you self-sabotage. Just number 9. You push away good things because they feel unfamiliar and uncomfortable. Healthy love, support, or peace may feel boring or suspicious because chaos was normal. I don't know how to receive what I never had. And that is so true. You don't know how to receive it. Especially if you had to do everything on your own, you had to figure it out. So when help comes, you like, nah, you know what? I'm going to figure it out, but you never know by just asking what this person holds for you. And you don't even have to think that hard. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of us, we reinvent the wheel when we don't have to. All we got to do is open our mouths. Survival has taught us to be scared of true connections, right? True connection, people that really genuinely want to help you. But survival taught us to stay away. That's dangerous, right? That's why I said, y'all don't understand when I tell people that I've made being uncomfortable and I made uncertainty, not knowing, I made them two things my best friend. I sure did. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know who holds my blessing. I really don't. And if I'm too scared to even just say hi or just have a conversation with somebody, then I'm stuck. I'm stuck. Especially when I'm trying to do something, I would just introduce myself and tell a person, y'all don't even understand the many connections that I have made here is insane just by me getting out of my comfort zone. Literally. And back home, I would tell people I'm an introvert, not knowing that was connected to my trauma, right? And I'm going to break that down too for people that always say that they're an introvert. That's connected to your wounded inner child. Let's keep going, y'all. So it says addictions. This number 10, and we are explaining what a wounded inner child looks like in adulthood. So number 10 is addictions and numbing, right? You use food, drugs, work, sex, social media, or distractions to silence your inner pain. Y'all, come on. Come on. Can you relate? Can you relate? Because I used back then, because I tell people I ain't ashamed. I'm not ashamed of anything no more, because this is part of my healing, is being vulnerable and transparent. So I was a semi-alcoholic back then. Nobody knew this. So I used that, and then I used work. I dove into, man, let me tell y'all something. I missed so much of my child's activities, right? When I had and it's crazy because I had the time to take off work, y'all. I had the time to take off work, but survival taught me that if I don't work, you know what I'm saying? And I can't, even though I got the time to take off, but yeah, survival told me I gotta work. 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 And I dove into work, y'all. Especially when you got the time to take off. Some people got the time to take off and they don't even take a vacation that whole entire year. They don't even, no self-care, no nothing. You just work, 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 work. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to drugs and food, a lot of people suppress their pain with food addictions, right? Food addictions, drugs, of course, drugs, because you're trying to numb. Sex, y'all. Have we ever thought of, especially when we see the young, and I'm not finna, this is no gender related, because men can dive into very sexual activities as well as women, young girls and boys, you know what I'm saying? So have we ever thought that instead of us saying that they're fast, hot, or whatever the case may be, have we ever thought of what is they suppressing under that to make them want to jump from person to person to person, to have a temporary feel good? All of this stuff is a temporary feel good. That's why you keep going at it. It's temporary. It wears off. So you got to keep doing it again, and you got to keep doing it again, and you got to keep doing it again. Y'all, this is what a wounded inner child in adulthood looks like. Right? So it says, distractions to silence the inner pain, but your wounded child doesn't need to be silenced. It needs to be heard. Heard. It needs to be heard, not silenced. It needs to be heard. Right? So it says the wound isn't your fault, but the healing is your responsibility. We can't keep just going through life to say, they hurt me. They hurt me. And hold on to that for years and years and years, right? Because it's doing nothing to us but continuously to make us the victim of our pain, right?